Hey guys, bad news! I ran out of wine, so today, to try and numb the Halo pain, I'm drinking $3 Japanese 7-Eleven whiskey. So, cheers. So, unless you've been living under a rock, the last week has been quite, eventful for Halo, to put it lightly. Now, we have a couple of things to talk about today. Some that's actually quite good pertaining to Campaign Evolved, some new information, and some stuff that's not so good, but I know what you're all going to say. I'm late to this video, to this topic, and there are, well, two reasons for that. Firstly, I didn't want to talk about this topic immediately because I knew that more information was going to come out about it, and I wanted to try and collate as much information as I could in one video, and lo and behold, more information did come out. But, also, part of the reason why this video is late is because I was unironically doing paid work for Halo Studios. Yep, I know how that sounds, especially given the context of what we're going to be talking about today. I've already had people telling me that because I did the audiobook work, which of course was paid, I can now no longer be trusted to say anything impartial about Halo or Halo Studios or Microsoft, which of course I think anybody with a slight degree of rationality in their brain knows that that is completely not the case, otherwise I wouldn't be making this video. But that's the other reason why we're a little bit late to this topic. Anyway, the main thing we're talking about today is the Glenn Israel situation. What's been going down in the last week with him and Halo Studios and Microsoft. So, if you don't know who Glenn Israel is, then he is, or I guess now was, one of the longest running Halo developers on the franchise. He worked on Halo since 2008, where at Bungie he worked on ODST and Reach. Then, in 2010, he transitioned to 343, where he acted as a sort of keeper of the flame for visual aspects of the franchise. In 2019, he became de facto concept art lead. Then, in 2022, he became the art director for Infinite's multiplayer. In 2023, he became the interim studio art director, and then was also art director on an unannounced Halo project from 2024 to 2025. So not only had Glenn worked on Halo for 17 years, but in his very own words, there was a 9-month window in which he served 3 director-level positions concurrently. However, Glenn left Halo Studios last October, and not exactly on the greatest of terms. When he left, he posted a very cryptic and rather ominous statement on LinkedIn, saying, "There is little more I can say for the moment, though I intend to share this particular story in its entirety when it is absolutely safe to do so next year." And last week, it came time for him to finally share his story, and frankly, this story is insane. This is so much more insane than any similar story that we've had like this in the past. This is not an ex-developer saying like, oh, the leadership at Halo Studios don't know what they're doing with Halo. Like, it goes far beyond just like developing Halo. Far beyond that. So in this LinkedIn post, Glenn stated that between January 2024 and June 2025, he witnessed firsthand or was personally subjected to numerous unethical and/or unlawful acts committed by senior Halo Studios representatives, including, but not limited to, blacklisting, fraud, rampant favoritism/cronyism manifesting as hiring and career growth interference, and multiple harassment campaigns designed to provoke the constructive discharge of quote-unquote unwanted employees otherwise in good standing. He goes on to say that he filed several complaints with Microsoft's HR department in June 2025, of whom then threatened him with retaliation on first contact and promised to quash any further investigation. He says that in July 2025, senior Halo Studios representatives engaged in a 4-day-long act of harassment to manufacture a cause for Glenn's termination, of which he presented to Microsoft HR, but they failed to take any appropriate disruptive action during the harassment campaign, nor any punitive action afterward. He says that the complaints that he escalated to Microsoft's workplace investigation team were reported closed when in fact they had been returned as out of scope. That in August 2025, catastrophic mismanagement of Campaign Evolved created an opportunity for Halo Studios representatives to temporarily reassign the art team from Glenn's unannounced project to Campaign Evolved, and in doing so, falsely categorized his role as redundant, something that he calls a plainly retaliatory act. that in September 2025, an HR director promised to have this retaliatory act investigated, but then disallowed any consideration of the original complaints, harassment, or actions taken by HR that he'd previously reported. He said that all HR bodies involved failed to carry out even the most cursory investigation into matters by refusing to interview primary witnesses that Glenn had cited in his original complaints, and then finally says that Microsoft openly violated Washington state employee law and has since made no attempt to meet its penalty obligation. So, as you can see, these are some pretty serious and potentially law-breaking accusations that Glenn is making here. But he wasn't done yet. He then made a second post making some accusations specifically aimed at Microsoft after a bunch of people reached out to him privately about their experiences in a similar manner. Accusations of Microsoft routinely contriving or exploiting layoffs to rid itself of employees who have filed proper and effective complaints, thereby masking these retaliatory acts with a thin veneer of business justification. And that organizations and investigations within Microsoft HR are deliberately compartmentalized to obfuscate responsibility and to create plausible deniability. So this is all obviously very serious stuff, and in the comments of Glenn's post, there are actually several X343/Halo Studios employees who corroborate his claims. And then for anybody out there who still somehow might doubt that any of this is true, a few days ago he also posted evidence of him sharing these issues privately and internally all the way back in January 2025. So there's a lot to unpack here, but I think the foundational issue is something that has plagued Halo literally since the get-go: Microsoft. Now I will say that nowadays I see a lot of people try and shift the blame for like any Halo developmental problem to either be 100% on the behalf of Halo Studios and P43 or 100% the fault of Microsoft, when in reality, the two are kind of one and the same, at least when it comes to the leadership. I think what a lot of people fail to realize is that Halo Studios leadership is essentially Microsoft. Like the line between those two is extremely blurred. You know, the difference between Bungie and Halo Studios in this regard is that Bungie leadership were far better at handling Microsoft's mismanagement and interference than Halo Studios are because, I mean, in part at least, there was always that degree of separation because even though Bungie were owned by Microsoft, they weren't a direct creation of Microsoft. There was still a route for them to get their freedom, as they did in 2007. Halo Studios couldn't break off from Microsoft because they are literally just a subsidiary. And so, unfortunately, I really think that corporate Microsoft interference and bullshittery like this is kind of just going to continue ad infinitum unless we happen to strike a miracle and we end up getting a new kind of Ed Freeze type character to come in and save the day. Now, Ed Freeze, for those who might not be aware, is essentially the unsung hero of Halo. As a franchise, as a universe, if you love Halo, you should love Ed Freeze. Ed was an Xbox executive during the days of Bungie Halo, especially during the early days of Bungie Halo, and he was a prime example of how an executive in gaming should operate. He fought Bungie's corner tooth and nail, day in, day out, in almost every way, and you speak to anybody who worked on Halo at Bungie back in that era, and they will all have nothing but good stuff to say about Ed. Ed fought Halo's corner non-stop on the corporate side, and I think one of the issues now is that we don't really have anybody like that doing that for Halo. In fact, it's gone the opposite way, and Halo has kind of fallen into the corporate sort of bucket even more so, with Halo Studios being a subsidiary of Microsoft and not a separate entity. Without somebody like Ed, corporate bullshittery obviously just is allowed to run rampant, which leads to situations like Glenn's here, where extremely long-standing, dedicated creatives who are extremely talented get screwed over by the corporate side of the industry. This is all, of course, to assume that everything that Glenn is saying is true, which, I mean, I severely doubt that he's making any of this up because he's come with receipts and he's got people corroborating all the stuff that he's saying in the comments. So I'm pretty sure it is all true, but I just thought I'd caveat that. Now, when Windows Central reported on all this a few days ago, Microsoft actually reached out and provided a comment to them about this situation. An Xbox spokesperson said, and I quote, "Out of respect, we don't publicly discuss individual employee issues, but we do take all claims seriously for both current and former employees." So yeah, it's a bit of a nothing statement, but I feel like the fact that Microsoft have actually reached out and provided any kind of comment on this goes to show that there is at least a degree of truth here. So yeah, unfortunately, I think this is just another one of those situations where the corporate side of gaming rears its head in total disregard for the artistic side. And again, don't get it twisted. This is not just a Microsoft issue. This is not just a Halo Studios issue. This is a Microsoft and Halo Studios issue. I said this earlier, but I'm really getting sick of seeing people try and take one side over the other and just make it a sort of like groupthink, pack mentality type situation. It's not healthy, and that does nothing to try, I'm not going to say solve, because realistically there's nothing we can do about this, but it does nothing to try and at least partially remedy situations like this when it just devolves into groupthink. It's not healthy. The two are essentially one and the same. I just really hope that Glenn actually gets compensation for all this and gets his fair return from being screwed over like this, because not only is him getting screwed over after 17 years of dedication to a franchise despicable, but the ways in which he's been screwed over, ways plural, go kind of beyond despicable. I mean, a 4-day-long harassment campaign. Like, dude, what the fuck are we doing? Glenn, if you happen to be watching this by some insane stroke of luck, then I wish you the best. Thank you for everything that you've done for Halo in both eras, genuinely. I hate the fact that it ended like this, especially for someone who's given a franchise the level of dedication and commitment and talent that you've given it, but I mean, here we are, I guess. But to try and end this incredibly bleak section with a slight hint of positivity, hopefulness, I guess, just bear in mind that Bungie were able to deliver banger after banger after banger after banger after banger, whilst also facing similar amounts of Microsoft pressure. Yes, Bungie are not the same as Halo Studios, especially 4.3. There are inherent differences between the two of them, but they were able to do that, right? There is a non-zero chance that we end up getting some like Ed Freeze type character who saves us, or that something happens that would alleviate this. What I'm trying to say, what I'm really trying to say here is that it's never chalked, okay? Never fully give up hope. You're allowed to be realistic. Hell, I am, but just, it's never chalked. It's never chalked. Okay, let's try and shift the vibe a little bit, if it's even possible after that section of the video. Let's talk about some Campaign Evolved news that's actually good. It's actually almost overwhelmingly good. So, yay! So, people recently noticed that Campaign Evolved has just been rated in Korea. The Korean's rating board have given the game a 19+ rating, which is equivalent to an M rating in the US. And this, I believe, means that the game is Halo's first M-rated game since Halo 4. Now, you're not going to catch me screaming from the rooftops celebrating this as if Halo is back, right? You're not going to catch me doing that because, well, A, to make Halo 1 a T-rated game would essentially require you destroying and ruining the Flood completely, right? And B, Halo should have never left the M rating in the first place. It should have kept that rating and kept that violence and gore that came with it. Of course, Halo was never the most like Gears of War style game, but you know, you look at like the original Halo games with the Flood, and you look at Halo 4 with the Tilson scene, it had some pretty graphic moments, and Halo's not had that since. So having this rating back, it is great for those, and I'm not going to sit here and not be happy about it because we've got it back. That's great. I'm at the point now where, frankly, I'm willing to take whatever small win I can with this franchise, and this is definitely a small win, so yay! Then, a few days ago, Grunt.api, who is a very notable Halo's data miner / insider that we've covered a ton before, posted this very cryptic tweet, which essentially boils down to Campaign Evolved releasing on July 28th, with paid early access beginning on July 23rd. Grunt told Rebs that this early access period will come via the special edition of the game, which is pretty normal, to be honest with you. Like, loads of games do this, like, buy the collector's edition, get access to the game a few days early thing. Battlefield did it, tons of other games have done it as well, so this is pretty normal. This was then corroborated by Windows Central themselves, who, when reporting on it, said that one of their sources had also indicated to them that the game has a July release window, which would of course line up with all the previous leaks that we've had about a summer release in a bet to try and avoid the meteor that is GTA 6. And then finally, Rebs also reported that the game is currently fully playable, so I presume it's entered the kind of final polish stage of development now, which again, if he's right here, is only more fuel to add to the July release window fire. So theoretically, Campaign Evolved is only 3 and a bit months away, which is kind of weird to think about, to be quite honest. Of course, given that it's a remake, I'm not expecting the game to get a full, regular, like really long, really in-depth marketing cycle. I would expect, honestly, to see marketing begin after the next Xbox showcase, which I believe is June 7th. I can see them going hard for a month, but I wouldn't expect like a Hunt the Choose style, like 9-month long marketing window for what is essentially just a remake. I also think the increasing number of leaks that we're starting to see about the game, as well as the beginning of brand promotions like Fanta and also merch releasing, is kind of indicative of the game releasing pretty soon as well. Being perfectly real, just to fill you guys in on where I'm currently at with this game, I'm not the most excited. I am really excited for the Johnson prequel campaign. If the leaks about that we covered last week are real, then I'm actually really excited for that. But based on everything that I've seen, that we've heard from recent leaks, and that I've actually experienced myself by playing the demo of the actual campaign remake part of the game, I'm not particularly enthused about that. I'm willing to have my mind changed. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to have the game come out and I end up loving it. Going in as open-minded as I can, but I'm not particularly enthused by the remake right now. But the Johnson campaign? Those leaks are true. Ooh, that's going to be some good stuff. And finally, I have some pretty sad and serious news to talk about regarding someone who played a key role in defining the Halo that we love. Nate Walpole, who is an ex-Bungie animator who worked on Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, and also on Halo 4, unexpectedly passed away last week. You might recognize Nate from a load of the old school Bungie Vidocs that I'm sure we've all watched like 1,000 times, or from the ODST that was named after him in Halo 2's Day at the Beach cutscene. Nate was a legend, and a GoFundMe has been set up to help his wife and 2 kids through what is obviously a very rough time that's been sprung on them out of nowhere. And so I've linked that GoFundMe down in the description for anybody who might want to donate. I have such an affinity for the animations of Bungie-era Halo specifically, so much so that I even have like most of the animations from like all of their games memorized, and I can just kind of recreate them off by heart. I mean, a few years ago, me and some of my friends had a joke that whenever we go to a club, we just do Halo reload animations. Like, those animations are so ingrained in my brain. From character animations to weapons and even environment animations, they were a core part of crafting this perfect universe that Bungie created. And Nate was a core part of that. So, Nate, rest in peace. Absolute legend. Thank you for everything you gave Halo, and gaming in general as well, because you did more beyond just Halo. Thank you so much. And to Nate's family as well, I'm truly sorry. I hope you are doing as well as you could possibly be doing during a time like this. Like I said earlier, I've linked the GoFundMe for the family down below in the description. If any of you want to go throw some dollars their way, then I'm sure they'd be very appreciative. But yeah, rest in peace, Nate. Absolute legend. And so, with that said, let's round this video out there. I want to give a huge thank you to all of my amazing patrons for the continued support over there as per usual. Thank you all so much, and thank you all so much for watching. My next video will be a more positive Halo video. I really hope. I really hope it will be. Please, please, for the love of God, please. Yeah, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next one.